everybody, welcome to another edition of Toddster's Magical Mystery Review. I'm your host Toddster, and today we're going to take a look at McCartney 2 by Paul McCartney. Yes, came out May 16th, 1980 on Parlophone Records. And this is sort of like, this album sort of like picks up where he left off with his first solo album, so to speak. And by the time the album came out, Wings was probably over. They did a tour of England in December of '79, and was going to do a world tour in the new year. And that was until Paul got busted in Japan. And of course, spend a few days in jail, and that was literally the end of Wings. So this album, in the meantime, shortly after the release of Back to the Egg, Paul decided to sort of make some little doodlings on his own. He had a little 16 track machine, and he recorded it in his home studio and around his house as well. And it took a month, and yet when he started playing bits of stuff to people, everyone thought, oh, that's his next album, and sure enough it was. And and it's a pretty interesting album. So let's get to the songs. So we start off with the big hit single, Coming Up. Paul used a bit of a vary speed on his vocal for this track, and yet he played this song on the last Wings tour. And the live version of this from Glasgow is better known to the US, as it became a number one hit in America, and yet the video is awesome as well, as Paul plays a whole bunch of different characters. He plays Beatles Paul and Hank Marvin from the Shadows. I actually thought it was Buddy Holly at first, and he also plays as some guy from the guy from Sparks. The guy that looks a bit like Hitler, and even Linda played a couple characters as well. But then we move on to a Temporary Secretary. Yes. It's a very weird but yet fascinating number. The lyrics are very tongue-in-cheek. A guy looking for a secretary, and it's a wonderful track, an overlooked gem, in my opinion. And then we go on to On the Way. Yes, sort of a bluesy type number with a very echoey reverb vocal. Yeah, it's a nice song. And then we move on to Waterfalls. Yes, not to be confused with TLC, even though Paul sort of noticed resemblance between that and his Waterfalls. It's a lovely ballad that's also another overlooked gem. Wonderful arrangement, beautiful lyrics, and another great highlight. And then we end the first side with Nobody Knows. Yeah, it's a bit of a rockadoodle, so nothing special here. So we flip the record, go to the second side. Front Parlor. Yes, it's the first of two instrumentals, and yet this one's a bit of a techno dance type number. Sort of a bit like Kraftwerk. Sort of interesting to hear. And then we move on to Summer's Day Song. Yeah, it's a very mellotron-driven ballad, which is another great highlight, almost as good as Waterfalls. And then we go on to the other instrumental, Frozen Jap. Yeah, many people thought, when this came out, many people thought this was his little response to his drug bust in Japan, which of course it wasn't, because it was recorded before that. Yeah, it's another interesting tune. And then boogie music. Yeah, a bit of a boogie woogie piece, which again, Paul plays around with the very speed vocals. It's an okay tune. And then Dark Room. Another very speed vocal tune, yet some of the backing vocals sound a bit like like the racing hamster, the little viral racing hamster back in the 90s, it's something like that. And it's another okay tune. And then we end the album with One of These Days. Yeah, probably the most simplest song on the album, just Paul and his guitar with a little help from Linda. And it's another nice song. And then, and now we go into the bonus songs. Check My Machine, which was the B-side to the Waterfalls single. It's another very speed vocal, which actually samples a Tweety and Sylvester cartoon. Yeah, but it doesn't really go anywhere, just the B-side. And then Secret Friend, yes, came out as a B-side to the 12-inch Temporary Secretary single. And it's just 10 minutes of bit of nonsense, which you can never go back. So, skip that. And then we go to Paul's disco hit back in '79, Good Night Tonight. And actually started off as an instrumental. And, it's a wonderful track, yet, it sort of should have been on the Back to the Egg reissue instead of here. It should trade places with Wonderful Christmas Time, in my opinion. But yeah, so that's the album. So what to say? Well, it's a very interesting album. Way much ahead of its time. Yeah, some songs here are great, yet some songs are just little doodles. And yeah, so as far as my rating, I'm gonna give this 2.5 Pauls. Yes, 2.5 Pauls for McCartney 2. Yeah, so my name is Toddster, and you just watched another Magical Mystery review, and we'll see you next time. Until then, toodaloo.